So it's been a while since I'd done a video, so I thought I'd go over a few things. You might notice they're off the car. Well, I got this idea from a guy who was doing the same thing, basics of drum brakes. And I thought, man, I gotta take this car all apart anyways to paint stuff and that. It'd just be a lot easier to do it on the workbench, so that's what I did. Plus, as you can tell by my tools, the only brake tool I got left anymore is what they used to call a brake spoon for adjusting it. And that's the fun of drum. That's the other reason I did this, because the fun of Volkswagen drum brakes are not like some American cars, mostly in the rear, but they have, at least they have self-adjusters. No, that not here. And the way bugs are trying to slide a drum onto a solid axle, or even I got to swap out the bearings, the newer bearings. Who knows how much fun that's going to be trying to wiggle these on and then adjust them. So I thought, the best way to get closest to it is assemble it all on the bench, adjust it, mess with it, and then I can take it right over here to the drum and test fit it. And if you hear that scraping sound, that sounds like metal to metal. That's just the right amount of drag to start with. I mean, I can fine tune it. Also, I can get these adjusters using this cheap plastic caliper. I can measure them out and make sure they're even so I don't get any chewed up uneven wear, because that's the problem with this system. It doesn't float. This moves here, it pivots that way. American cars with their self-adjusters will, yes, you'll notice like Fords, it's backwards. Actually, in the car, this is the rear and that's the front. But anyways, in American cars, your pivot point will be at the top sometimes it'll be at the bottom. But anyways, so the thing is, they'll have a single pivot point. It'll be a round stud, and then the hydraulic cylinder, it's different than these. These, they'll show on this, they only go so far and stop. Where most American cars, if you push on it, it actually floats. And also on American cars, all these brake shoes are the same size. You'll have a primary and secondary shoe. What's a primary and secondary shoe? Well, they use the centrifugal force of the drum. I don't know which side primary and secondary is. So as the drum's spinning and the brake's applied pressure, it actually uses the motion of the drum to actually help catch the brake shoes and basically apply a little bit more force to it. Now, that's why you'll notice sometimes when you release the brakes on some cars, it takes a second for the brakes to come up, especially trailers. You'll notice that much more on trailers that have hydraulic electric brakes. You come to a stop, you start to go, and it takes a bit sometimes more for the brakes to seem like they're released. If you do it fast. Yeah, if you sit there for a while, it all goes back to the right position. Anyways, I think that system works better than this. Except for my 73 Super Beetle, most of my older bugs, including the 67, had horrible brakes. But this is a restoration project trying to go as original possible, so we're doing this. Anyways, that was the basics of it. Like I said, I used to have all the fancy tools. I used to have the tool to push that in. The tool now is a plier. We'll get it in there, get it to lock in. You'll see there's a slot there. Get these springs off. Vice grips for the big one. It's bigger because it's got more pressure on it. This one's just keeping them on the adjusters. That actually could use that. And the easy way to put it on, take it off a little bit, but put it on. Make sure you have the adjuster all the way in though, because I made that mistake. It was fun. You put these in last. Put the springs on first and just force them on there. A little bit of fun because this one's a pop-up. Then you stick the thing in. No problem. It's much easier to do it that way. Anyways, I thought I'd go over that. Maybe some more basics for you. Front wheel cylinders are 22 millimeter. Rear wheel cylinders are supposed to be on my car 19 millimeters. they went back and forth. So now I have these off the Super Beetle, which are 17 millimeters. It's gonna actually apply a little more rear brake. We'll see how that works. You know, technically it's just gonna add more brake. Yes, it will move the bias a little to the rear. I don't think I care. And I got all that information from this book here. Dune buggies and Baja bugs and that. And it says right here, 16 later, 17 millimeters. Then over here, 58 to 67 models used 19 millimeter rear wheel cylinders, and they pretty much all use 22 millimeter front wheel cylinders. If you have a dune buggy, and these can be different sizes. This just happens like you know, pretty much the same. Like if I wanted to, if I want to totally mess this thing up, I could stick the 17s in the front, the 22s in the rear, and just completely throw the rear bias to the rear. But whatever, don't do that. When it comes to master cylinders, you have a 17 millimeter, a 19 millimeter, and if you want a really big one, 66 and later buses have a 19 millimeter. So, I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself. They have a 22 millimeter. What will that do? Well, if you've ever built a dune buggy and used a bus master cylinder and only rear stock brakes, you'll get a really hard pedal. Yeah, technically it's applying more force, or it's trying to apply more force on the shoes, but because of the different design, it's actually requiring you to put more pressure on the pedal. Now, if you extended or changed the pivot point, yes, you would have killer brakes. Trick I used to do is, like you'll see in this book here, it talks about, you know, most drum shoes are, these are 40s, but some early ones are 30s. But you can go even crazier and use thing rear brakes, which I forget what they are. They're over 40, I think. Anyways, you do that. Then you take a front, and I think to put it on the rear, you have to get a, depending on the things, you have to get a wheel cylinder from a Type 3. Anywho, doing that when you're only running rear brakes and the bus master cylinder will give you some killer brakes, especially when you have a steering brake. So that's about it. Let me stop. Oh, one other thing, and this is kind of cool. So these shoes are new, obviously. I bought them, and I said I didn't want to use this old crusty stuff on the car. But I can tell that these have been changed recently. Because here's the ones the previous owner stuck on. Oh wow, and they look the same. Because they are the same. These are not technically front shoes for a 65 bug. These are the leftover rear shoes from my 73 Super Beetle. I put disc brakes on it. I had planned on redoing the rear brakes, took it apart, and they were brand new. I just needed to change the busted cables, so I had these laying around. Started doing, where's the box? These are Brake Best, you know, O'Reilly's used to be Checker. Brake shoes, bought for the rear. They are the same as a 65 bug front. What do they do? That's for the rear brakes. That's where the emergency brake bias bar, where they call it, goes. They just added more holes. They just made them universal, so these fit front and rears now. So I thought that was cool. So if you don't know, now you know. And I like that. I mean, people are like German, Lloyd. That's really hard to get. These are brake shoes. I don't know. I have to been a while since that brake shoes failed, so I like that. You know. Plus, my friend works at AutoZone, and he's a bug guy too, and he pretty much says, like, yeah, they don't stock anything anymore, practically not even spark plugs. So that was nice. So now you know that, hey, front and rear, same. Well, front and rear on certain years. Super Beetles have bigger rear brakes. I remember studying here, 30 millimeter. They'll have something like this in the front, and I might do a video on the rears when I get to them, but it'll have the smaller shoes in the back. So is there a way around that? Yeah, you could use 68 later rear backing plates and put the wider brake, blah blah blah. That's the only thing Volkswagen ever did to improve braking on their cars was make the shoes wider. That was it. They did change the master cylinder and the way it's set up to put more pressures, like I kind of already explained, but that's it. So yeah, and I got these orientated like how they are on the rear, but technically they go like that. This towards the back, so this is your right side. That towards the back is also your right side, because these holes are universal. So anyway, sometimes you'll have an offset. Anyway, that's about it. Hopefully it was some information for you. Yes, I rambled on too long, but anyways, basically it's just how to set up your brakes before struggling under the car. See ya.